Minister. I very much welcome this bill, and I'm particularly delighted that it puts the Climate Action Fund on a statutory footing with the implementation of this legislation. I welcome also that there is a commitment that once this bill becomes legislation and is commenced, that there will be a second call for projects to be announced. And it is on the subject of one of those such projects that I wish to address you, Minister. I want to bring you to your attention a group calling itself Metro South West. This group, headed by Pauline Foster and Sean Ward, comprises a collection of volunteers in over 30 residents' associations contained within Dublin South Central and South West Dublin constituencies, and they have been carrying out Trojan work in relation to the Metrolink, connecting Firhouse with Rathmines and taking in Kimmage and Harold's Cross that are within my own Dublin South Central constituency. A commitment to carry out a feasibility study in this Metro line was given by all three government parties in their election manifestos and supported by your good self, and currently a meeting is sought with you to advance the discussions on that feasibility study. South West Dublin is that triangle between the green and red Lewis lines, though not served by them, and it has only buses as its public transport options, standing in sharp contrast to South East Dublin, which is served by both the Dart, the Lewis, and in addition to a quality bus corridor. The population of South West Dublin in the area that would be proposed to be served by the Metro well exceeds that of the catchment area for the Lewis Green lines, and though it has been suggested that's not the case, arguments that say the population are insufficient are simply incorrect. One of the members of the group, Pauline, managed to get her hands on a 1973 bust timetable that contained, and in that she did a comparison of the bus seats in 1973 with a much smaller population than now. And even if Bus Connects delivered everything, including its spines, it still is less than we had with a much smaller population for the area back at that time. We have a unique opportunity with the Metro tunnel boring machine that is proposed to be abandoned underground to do something really strong, and I strongly advocate that instead of being abandoned, it's turned slightly and moved over in our direction, and providing an excellent and energy sustainable public transport option. The benefits here are immense. In this particular area, there's over 70% reliance on private car. Modality conversion would be guaranteed and pay dividends on the investment in terms of the environment and quality of life for our residents. An efficient and diversity of choice in public transport makes hospitals, workplaces and the city more accessible. The more accessible city, the more life we have in our city centres for families to enjoy it and to have the experience of a vibrant city life, as well as all the environmental benefits that we don't need to lecture you on. The plans of the Metro of this route are not new. As long ago as 2001, the Dublin Transport Office, its Transportation Office, published a report entitled A Platform for Change, modelling a bus-only solution, and that report states, in summary, the analysis of the comprehensive bus scenario established that buses alone could not address the problem because in many of the main transportation corridors, the bus mode cannot provide the necessary capacity to cope with the forecast demand. The report went on to recommend the provision of a Metro from Tallaght to the airport, including Kimmage and Harold's Cross. How is it that nearly 20 years later, with a fewer density of population then and a hugely increased population now, as well as all that is planned in the coming years, that the argument for that transport solution is not made and not sustainable now in actual fact? As the Metro Group itself has put forward, their arguments say this is very straightforward. Buses alone cannot provide sufficient public transport capacity in Dublin South West, and as a result, the South West will remain heavily reliant on cars, which will further damage the environment. On-street Lewis is not feasible in this particular area, and so the only way to provide the required capacity is via a Metro. In other words, there's no alternative to Metro to meet the public transport needs of those living in the South West Dublin and that portion of Dublin South Central. This analysis is supported by the residents' associations and their experience and the canvassing of them. It is imperative that this position is reviewed and that the feasibility study is undertaken, and with the passing of today's legislation, I strongly propose and urge you, Minister, that the Metro South West feasibility study is undertaken as one of the projects from the Climate Action Fund, and that funding is red circled out of that for us, and that we take cognizance of the eminently sensible and reasonable terms of reference that are suggested and put forward by the South West Metro campaign. Thank you very much.